Welcome all to the Men of F.E.A.S.T. Thanks for joining us. In this episode, Wayne, one of the founding fathers of the Men of F.E.A.S.T, introduces us, after a brief intro, to the topic of self-care.
This group and F.E.A.S.T certainly helped get us to where we're at now. And I always want to say to people, I remember being hopeless in a sense. Maybe I wasn't hopeless, or I wouldn't have been in stepping forward and taking small steps, but it sure felt that way. And there's always hope. Like things can change. And by the way, a lot of those symptoms that were present, like the not being able to be alone, and the voices and everything else, it's amazing how weight restoration makes those things disappear. This thing is so counterintuitive to other things I've encountered in life. A child, my daughter, I can only share my experience, right? But my daughter, who would not wear a swimsuit or leggings, let's say at 120 pounds because she thought she was too fat, at 140 pounds, wears these things and it's fine, which is completely counterintuitive. Like, you think it wouldn't work that way, right? And we still got a long way to go. So we're in what we would call phase 2, like helping her learn how to eat again and be able to maintain her own weight and her own physical well-being. And it's not like it was in the beginning. They say this is a marathon that starts with a sprint. So we've gotten through the sprint part. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about when they said that, by the way. Sprint or marathon that begins with a sprint. Now I get it. And we're in the marathon spot, and it's still ups and downs. We're working with a therapist. My wife and I have worked more effectively on it. In the beginning, when we tried to give my daughter ice cream, and she got yelled at us and got big eyes and said, "You're trying to effing kill me." It wasn't her, it was the eating disorder. And I get distress tolerance because I have to tolerate quite a bit of distress to be able to try to push through that, for sure. And just a recent example is we're now in this, like I say, like phase 2, and most things are returned to normal, which is I'm grateful for that, like normal, whatever that is. But one of the things is when she's getting her own food, like we worked it out with our therapist, and mom and my wife and I and my daughter and the therapist, we all sat together and said, okay, we're going to use big plates, or normal, regular size plates. We're not going to use these little plates. And, we had a thing the other night where, this is a couple weeks ago now. And, she, is it she, or is it the disease? I don't even know anymore. But anyway, she had a small plate, and it's this moment of in the home, other kids are getting food, and it's, all right, am I going to say something? Or I'm looking at my wife, I'm looking at her, just hoping she swoops in and I could not have to go there. And so I said something, and I have no idea sometimes how to say this, and we work on that in treatment. But my daughter got really angry and stormed off, and I don't want to have to deal with this anymore and everything. And I'm like, all right, so that's distress tolerance. And so what I was thinking about to prep for this is, if I take on that, when that happens, if I'm tolerating something, if there's distress in my home or between my wife and I, because that's part of it too, is it's a family system thing. And of course I do so many stupid things as well that cause my wife distress, and she has to try to tolerate it. And I don't always tolerate it. Sometimes it comes out poorly. But if there's distress and I'm tolerating it, then I'm carrying it somewhere, right? It doesn't just go out into the universe. It doesn't pass through me and then go elsewhere. I'm somehow, somewhere, mentally, spiritually, physically, I'm carrying that distress because I took it on. And so self-care, for me, a few things that I need that. I do need that. And I think sometimes culturally, I'm supposed to be tough. Like, my pops was a coal miner, and I I was like, why would I need self-care? Like, I'm good. There's still an element of that, I think, for men and for dads, or at least for me. And so acknowledging that I might need self-care has been a first step. Then doing something about it is like a whole other thing. And on the journey, the things that have been helpful, I just think we all know our self-care mechanisms, or maybe we've thought about that. If we lost the death of a loved one, maybe we had self-care things that we did, and it's just that it applies here and it's needed here. And so one self-care thing for me has been to do yoga. And in the latter part of yoga, where I do it, or virtually with the local studios, they do Shavasana practice, which is dead man's pose, and lay on your back after like stretching in ways that I don't think I was meant to stretch. And then, laying there and being quiet and sinking into the earth. And for me, actually being present to an instructor's words and letting it go. I've had feelings, this is, like weird feelings I can't quite explain, of like things leaving. And I think that there's something to that, is this exchange, or like things leaving. So that's how. The other thing is, this group, Kevin and Frank are on here, and I've been around them a couple times, like knowing other people that are not, because look, like the world for me, I don't know about your world, but my world, we'll just tell your kid to eat. Like, just tell her to eat. Like, okay, sure, thanks, right? Like, I don't want to be a jerk, but sure. And even parents and friends, and and then we can go out in the world and people still oh, you're looking good. There's the world outside is not a particularly good place for me to get self-care. So to have a group like this and be able to put air under something that's happened, or I've sent an email to Kevin and Frank when stuff, and a couple other guys, when things were going on. And I think part of it is maybe looking for answers or shared experience. And part of it is just having somebody to be able to say, this is what's going on. This is what I'm feeling. This is how I'm interpreting it. And knowing that it's going to somebody who's going to read it and like get it has been helpful. And, and then walking, running, these are just things that I do for release. And I think it's more a matter of, I had to go for a walk after the whole plate thing. And we live, thankfully on a farm. It's, we've got a dirt lane here. And I took a walk down to the creek, and I, sat by the creek, and to take that time rather than going to do something else is self-care in my case. That's really what I wanted to share. And I was curious about, like Kevin said, I think the structure is talk a bit about the topic, but then leave time for just whatever people need. So I'd like to open it up and maybe hear what people have to say about, Kevin, if you're good with this, like kind of taking over and moderating the rest of it. I like hearing what other people would say about self-care and how they practice it, or how they make it okay for themselves. And then maybe just general Q&A and conversation after that.